started, inshallah.
Inshallah. You want to introduce or something, or what?
I can introduce you.
But you know.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wassalam ala Rasulillah. Today we are honored to have Brother Saleem Khan. He'll be giving us a presentation on titled First Steps Towards a Deeper Understanding of the Quran, in which he will outline the Holy Quran for us and give us some beneficial steps towards understanding it, comprehending it, and hopefully benefiting from it. Without further ado, Brother Saleem.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim Siratal ladzina an'amta alayhim Ghairil maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. O Allah, you have promised to guide these sincere seekers of guidance, and here we are seeking that knowledge to understand your Quran. I acknowledge that there may be more knowledgeable people in the audience than I am. I must humbly clarify that I'm not a scholar, but an ordinary individual striving to share a basic understanding of the Quran. Today, I wish to discuss a book I'm calling Primer to Understanding the Quran, a guide for taking the first steps toward a deeper connection with the message. The Quran is a text so profound that many who dedicate their lives to studying it, they still consider themselves as students. I have chosen to describe this work as primer because, like the initial coat of paint, it serves as a foundational layer, helping you begin to engage with the Quran. My hope is that after reading the overview, you will embark on your own personal journey through the Quran, seeking to understand and embrace the deeper essence of Allah's words. This book is a collection of scattered notes reflecting my personal thoughts and reflections compiled over the years to help understand and address questions that arose during my study of the Quran. I understand that each reader may have their own unique questions and perspectives when engaging with the Quran. These notes merely scratch the surface of the vast array of topics and themes found within its context. For those who wish to explore further, I strongly encourage you to pursue your own research and seek answers until you find clarity and satisfaction in your understanding. Our today's discussion will be as follows. A PowerPoint presentation highlighting the topics or nuggets, from the Quran. There is a section called retrospective, and I'll explain it further. The third thing is the concept of nazm, the organization and coherence within the Quran. And then I will just deal with one topic. I'm not going to go into the detail on any other items because of time. I'm just going to just focus on one item, and there's the basic strategy in the Quran, that what does Quran, how does it approach the subject? And then I'll leave it open, a discussion so that you all can come in and talk to us, because what we are trying to do is each one of us has a level of difficulty in understanding the Quran and going through with it. So, and I know if you have addressed the Quran, because this is a connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we will talk about your input as to how you feel, or what are your difficulties. And sharing this primer is my way of sparking curiosity and encouraging each of you to build your own connection with the Quran. The accompanying presentation highlights key topics that I recommend reviewing before delving into the surahs. The topics provide essential context and help frame the themes you will encounter in your study. I have tried to use simple and accessible English, avoiding complex Arabic terminology to ensure readers feel comfortable while grasping the content and themes of each surah. As mentioned earlier, this primer is just a starting point. After reading it, I encourage you to study the surahs directly using a reliable translation and consult authoritative tafsir books for deeper insight. For those interested, the primer will be made available in an ebook. I can share the PDF with anyone who provides their name and email address. Please note that it is still a work in progress. As promised earlier, Nazm Quran is a relatively recent area of study in the primer. I have introduced Nazm to highlight complementary and supplementary relationships between different surahs. For example, Surah Al-Baqarah and Surah Al-Imran are connected in their subjects and relationships. Surah Al-Baqarah talks mostly to the Ahl book, which is the Jews, and Surah Al-Imran talks to Christians. So, there is a relationship between these two surahs. Similarly, Surah Asra or Surah Bani Israel is directly connected with Surah Al-Kahf because of the commonality of subject matter. A great example is Surah Al-Mudassir and Surah Muzammil, which addresses the Rasulullah to, this was the beginning of his Nabuwa. And I have tried to color code these surahs, and you are not going to see it in this presentation here. That's in the book. And it provides readers with a clear understanding of those interwoven relationships. However, addressing the intricate nazm within each individual surah is a much more extensive and challenging effort. For example, Surah Al-Baqarah has 9 sections, and I'm not going to go into that detail as to how they address or relate to each other. So that's subject for further exploration. Now, here we are talking about basic strategy in the Quran, which this is the only subject I'm going to go in detail. Then there is a development of legal code or Sharia, and then basic core of belief system. Now, of course, for the basic core of belief system, Islamic creed is encapsulated in this one statement, and that is Al-Iman al-Mufassal, which we call Al-Iman al-Mufassal. Amantu billahi wa malaikatihi wa kutubihi wa rusulihi wal yawmil akhir wal qadr khairihi wa sharrihi min Allah ta'ala wa ba'as ba'd al-maut. And this declaration encompasses the 6 articles of faith in Islam, which are essential to a Muslim's belief. I have faith in Allah, the angels, His books, His messengers, last day, and that all good and evil is from Allah, the highest, and in the resurrection after death. Now here some of the individual topics which are addressed in a little more detail in the book is monotheism, which we call Tawheed, believing in one Allah, prophethood, believing in the Prophet ﷺ, but not only in him, but all the prophets which are mentioned in the Quran. Day of Judgment, Yom Akhira, Yom Ad-Din, Yom Al-Qiyamah, belief in the angels, belief in the books of Allah, belief in predestination, which is al-qadar, that all things are, done Allah's, will. Then we are the other items in the book are saying Quran is a unique book. It's unlike any other book we are used to read. It has normally, and again I don't want to go into in detail, but actually, so Quran has a divine orations. Allah has, this is a kalam Allah, that Allah has spoken. It's not some, when it came down to Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it came in terms of a speech. It was not written down like the tablets were given to Moses Alayhi Salam, but it was given in terms of through Jibril, a kalam Allah. So this is what divine orations, and then another subject I've dealt with is compilation, how Quran was compiled, and then standardization of dialects, because there were in Arabia there were several dialects, and the meanings were and accent were different in the Quran, so that was standardized. And subject of the Quran is, of course, man. That's the focus on the entire Quran. Then how these surahs were sequenced. Quran is a message for all mankind, messenger and the message, the relationship between the messenger and the message, and then Prophet's migration to Medina. And then background of surahs revealed in Makkah and Medina. There's a vast difference in terms of what these surahs were. So you need to know when you look at this surah, that what context it came out. If it Makkah, then there was the initial steps when the Nabuwah came to Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and the message was different. And most of the surahs in Makkah normally don't start say Ya Ayyuhal Mu'minun. It's mostly say Nas, people, because at that time there were not there are many Muslims there. Then I talk about in the book what is the Islam, the difference between Islam, Iman, and Ihsan, and how taqwa, zikr, and ibadah contribute towards, zikr or ibadah gives you taqwa, which is piety, and taqwa enhances your iman to the extent that it becomes ihsan, because ihsan is defined as, if you don't see Allah, but Allah sees you. So that's the level of ihsan. So we need to understand these terminologies and some description before diving into the surahs. Then we're talking about shirk. Shirk is you associate someone with Allah, and that is something. There are different type of shirks. At one time, the shirk was idol worshipping, but now idol worshipping is in limited areas. But the greatest shirk is our own self. Our own nafs is one of the things which really tells us to do things which we should not be doing it. So we need to be aware of where shirk comes from. And then I'm also explaining some of the things, Allah's rights, huququllah and huququl ibad, collective change or individual change, responsibility for one's deeds. This is something which actually in Quran comes out several times. وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةً وِزْرَ أُخْرَى, that you are responsible for your own deed, and I have dealt in the book. Then there are covenants, that Allah has drawn a agreement with, before we were born, and there's a difference between covenants for normal people and what the prophets, there's a different covenants for them. And what is the fitna? This is something we all face, tests, difficulties, trials, and tribulations in our life. And then death and life, that how death and life is viewed in Islam. Then I'm briefly talking about time, a precious resource for good deeds. Quran continuously draws an analogy between rainwater and how Quran compares rainwater with the Quran, just like rainwater comes down and refreshes the earth. Quran connects with our ruh, our soul, and refreshes our iman. So this is something you need to understand. I talked briefly about science, nature, and Allah, because in this day and age, actually Allah is, science has replaced Allah. This is one of the problems in the modern world, and we need to be aware of that. I talk about muhasaba versus muakhza, that muhasaba is something that Allah knows things, but He is going to take account only on those things which we act upon. Because He is not going to. There was a concern, as a matter of fact, at one time, that companions of the Prophet were concerned and said, when the surah came out, say, if Allah knows, what is in our heart, we are in trouble. So Rasulullah calmed him down and said, no, Allah is not going to really hold you accountable for you, what you have in your heart. But if you act upon it, then it becomes accountable. So there's a difference between the subject. Then we are talking about ilm, knowledge, and amal. This is also connected. You know it, and you exercise that knowledge. Tawbat al-nusu is also another important subject, which we need to understand. Tawbat al-nusu is sincere repentance, and what are the conditions, of that. Then fitra. Fitra is the natural disposition. We are born in a certain fitra. Rasulullah hadith says that we are all born Muslim, but people change it to Jews and Christians or whatever, Hindus. So this is something which we need to understand. Also, Quran talks about stories. There are a lot of stories, but there is always a significance of those. You need to understand how the qasas impact, because Allah takes those examples and explain a situation. Also, some of these stories have relationship to the situation which Rasulullah is facing at the time in his life. So that actually provides a GPS. So Quran is not only a hidayah, but it also is guiding Rasulullah in his mission, because he had a mission at the time which is not complete. So those stories relate to the situation at hand. Then, of course, Quran talks about akhlaq, good manners, moral and ethical teaching in Islam. There's a brief discussion about hikmah, the wisdom. Allah has given us the endowed us with hikmah, and that is something none of the animals have. We write it down things, and that knowledge builds up, and those experiences build up, and this is what hikmah is. And then value of sabr, patience, and shukr. These two things are, go together. Hope and fear is another subject. Now we come to human rights, how the human rights are dealt in Islam, and how the Quran projects them, equality and human dignity. There's another interesting subject, and there's Shura versus Najwa. Shura is consultation. You consult people in your family, you consult in the organization. You do not just arbitrarily make a decision that this is what we do. But Najwa is something which is like whispering. And we see that all along, that some people, make a group, and actually in modern day life, Najwa is like lobbying. And you see in these things, people, a small group of people, they don't bring the issue in the general meeting, but they make a group and they try to lobby, to propagate their, position. And that's something, is Quran denounces it. But I think this is the important thing, is to understand them. And how does the justice in Islam, adl, there are two words are used, adl and qist, and have to understand them. And then, of course, jihad is the most common thing, you have heard, but jihad is misused. But jihad is a struggle. Best struggle is our own struggle, how against our own self. Baraka, Rahma, Ummah, what are the responsibilities in a community? And men and women, the foundation of family system. How the contracts, when you contract something, how they should be handled. You have financial contract, you have living, you have marriage. Marriage is a contract. Importance of writing wills is a really major subject. The important thing is that there is, Quran tells you things that avoid future difficulties in your life. And then guidance on inheritance. And there's a subject, jinns. Jinns is a species, when the Quran recognizes that these are unseen. I have now identified some of these subjects, like, it's difficult for me to count, but there are 36 of these topics I have dealt with. But that does not necessarily limit itself. There may be other people who have come up with a lot of different topics. Now, this one subject is a little bit, I mentioned earlier, retrospective. And in this section, I have added a few reflective comments based on my limited understanding of the Quran. Some readers may find these reflections controversial. More knowledgeable individuals may, of course, arrive at different conclusions and different perspectives. Now, and I put down, identified a couple of these things. I'm going to throw it out, like the theory of evolution. How does Quran handles it, or how does Muslims should believe in theory of evolution? This is a subject they teach in schools. Are there human presence outside this world? human psychology. Look at the Sigmund Freud and his philosophy of how it is. But it's really, if you break it down, how does it connect with, what Islam teaches? Of course, some of the modern psychology does not recognize ruh, which is the soul in our body, does not recognize it. So they fail to acknowledge that there is something like ruh in our bodies. Allah continuously talk about that everything will be counted. Everything is going to be, even videotaped. Our eyes, our hands, our body, part are going to talk on the day of Qiyamah. So Allah may have really a super duper computer. We may be installed with so many chips that we don't even know what they are. But everything is videotaped. I mean, you can have different conclusions, but based on what Quran says, it comes to, it makes it easier for us to visualize. But you can imagine that some of these things, when they were mentioned 1400 years back, it was very difficult for people to visualize it. How would these things going to talk? But now we have all these instruments which make it very clear. And then we are talking about human DNA. There is a term in the Quran called shakila, that everybody is built on their shakila. And if you compare it in the modern verbiage, it's nothing but DNA. That you take, if you remember the movie Dinosaur, they were created based on DNA. So Allah can create us, with a little our hair or whatever is left. He has no problem recreating and resurrecting our our bodies. And then hudud, prescribed punishments. I mentioned this thing, and I have opinion, on this subject. Some of the things is like need for the day of judgment. Now, this was my personal difficulty I had with the Quran, that if Allah is such a powerful being, knows everything, why there is a day, why there is a one day allocated for day of Hashar? Why not? We are dead and everything is accounted for. But it makes sense that we do things, some good things and some bad things, and their effect continues. Even if we are dead, the good and bad things continue. So it makes it really definitely worthwhile to see that our entire that after effect is accounted for, and say, I don't know how Allah is going to judge and weigh those subjects, because it's very easy to quantify and weigh things, but measuring quality, that's only Allah knows how He's going to do that. And then the last one I'm talking about is the evil eye. This is an interesting subject, but I have some opinions about it, but that's all, So essentially, we go just angels or malaika, they have a role to play, and then again jinns. And this last subject is Dajjal. I'm not really going into Dajjal because some of the things I don't know well, and do not have the clarity of thought on that subject. So these are subjects which are open. People could have, knowledgeable people could have different opinions. I have different opinion. Now, in conclusion, let us reflect on a profound warning on the day of judgment. Each of us will stand before Allah, responding to questions about our actions, intentions, and our relationship with His guidance. One hadith vividly portrays the role of the Quran at that moment. It will either serve as our defender, speaking in our favor, or as a prosecutor, testifying against us. This means that our engagement with the Quran is not optional but essential. It is the source of light that can guide us through our lives and would serve as a witness in our favor in the hereafter. If we choose to neglect or ignore the Quran, however, we risk losing the very advocate we need most on that day, on that decisive day. Without its intercession, we may find ourselves without any defense at all, left vulnerable to the consequences of a life lived without heed to divine guidance. Ensuring it becomes a means of mercy and defense and not an indictment. Let us therefore approach the Quran with sincerity, seeking to integrate its teachings into our daily lives as a source of constant guidance, support, and protection. I urge all of you, including myself, to strengthen our relationship with the Quran. Now, I'm going to, like I promised, I'm going to talk about just one item, and that is what is the Quran's strategy in guidance? How does it guides? And what I have come to know that the strategy of the Quran is in 3 steps. One is transformation, gradual change, and developing a worldview, a new focus. And I'm going to talk about briefly some of these things. So the Quran's primary goal is to transform both hearts and lives, giving individuals and communities toward moral and spiritual development. Its teachings aim to nurture a deep connection with Allah and promote meaningful societal change. A compelling example of this transformative mission is seen in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, reflected in Surah 48 Al-Fatah. While the treaty's terms initially seemed unfavorable to the Muslims, it is described as a clear victory for the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. This is the only place Quran does not mention Badr as a victory. Quran does not mention Hunain as a victory, but this is the place where there was no armed struggle. It was just a peaceful solution. 1,400 people, just came for Umrah, and this story, came to being there. And the treaty's terms initially seemed unfavorable to the Muslims. It is described as a clear victory for Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. His companions demonstrated unwavering faith in his leadership by accepting the treaty, despite its apparent disadvantages. This act of trust became a pivotal moment, leading to long-term success and the growth of Muslim community. Surah 62 Al-Jumu'ah further explains the 4 essential stages of the Prophet's mission to guide and transform the unlettered people into devout Muslims. These stages outlined in Ayat 2 are critical for their spiritual and intellectual growth. The Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam led this transformation through a 4-step process, conveying the Quran and Allah's messages, purifying the soul, imparting knowledge of the divine scriptures, and instilling wisdom. This structured approach helped reshape a community with little spiritual direction into one aligned with divine truth and wisdom. Another key strategy of the Quran is its approach to gradual societal change, acknowledging that some transformations require time and patience. The prohibition of alcohol is a notable example of this method. Initially in Surah 2 Al-Baqarah, Ayah 219, Muslims were warned about the dangers of alcohol, recognizing its benefits but emphasizing its greater harm. Later in Surah 4 An-Nisa, Ayat 43, believers were prohibited from approaching prayer while intoxicated. Finally, in Surah 5, Al-Ma'idah, Ayat 91, alcohol consumption was fully forbidden. This gradual progression followed the community to adopt and materialize the moral message behind the prohibition. Similarly, the Quran addressed the complex practice of riba interest with a phased approach, reflecting the wisdom in gradually fostering societal reform. Beyond societal transformation, the Quran also invites believers to appreciate the wonders of creation. Observing a bird soaring through the sky, perfectly in tune with the wind, or witnessing the birth of a child serves as a reminder of Allah's boundless creativity and wisdom. These everyday occurrences are signs of Allah's greatness, encouraging believers to reflect on His mastery in the world around them. The Quran teaches that everything in creation reflects the divine, inspiring, developing a focus and a worldview. For those of you who are Urdu speaking, Iqbal had one stanza which says, Khol aankh, zameen dekh, falak dekh, fiza dekh, ubarte hua suraj ko zara dekh. Okay, you look at around you, look within yourself, and then look at beauty of Allah's creation. And with that, I just stop right here, and I'll have open it for a brief discussion and see, what everyone of you, what kind of difficulty, because this is actually, once you recognize the difficulties, now we all are, majority of us, should say, are non-Arabic speaking, and we all have some level of difficulties in understanding and studying the Quran. So I'm just going to open it, for this. Let's see what each one of you, what kind of difficulties you face, because once you recognize the difficulties, they can be addressed and, can be solved. So with that, I'm just going to, anyone? Khalid Saab, you want to say something?
No, I'm still good. Thank you very much.
No, but we want to hear whatever you have. I mean, when you read the Quran, what do you understand it fully? What kind of difficulties you have?
I have many difficulties because, like you said, I'm not Arab language, literate. The difficulties that we face is the implementation. Once you understand a problem, then you have a solution. If you do not have a good problem, then you cannot have a good solution. In order to understand the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, creation of a human, and for his service, he has created everything. No, he just wants to say, yeah, go ahead. So these are the things that, how many things are in our service. For instance, now we are knowing that there is a DNA. Can you believe that 1400 years, who would have understood that there is one Saviya banana, that we will even gather you? You are doubting that at the day of judgment, we will not gather you. We will gather even your fingertips. That alone the DNA. And when I was going in science school in 60s, early 60s, we only knew the atom, and it has three portions: neutron, electron, and proton. Now each one of them, those three are a subject. I gave a test on a computer, on a typewriter in one of the organizations where I worked, and then came the computer. And the biggest computer was 1.5 megabyte. And the telephone that I'm carrying, this one has 16 megabytes. So
Yeah.
knowledge is expanding, and we are knowing more and more things. That what are those things that are created for us, only for the one human being and jinn. Therefore, it is obvious in my mind that we got to be held accountable. If I've been a thug all my life, I've been robbing people, and I've been using poor people, I should be held accountable. So these are my thoughts. That actually your explanation is beautiful, and it enforces my thoughts, and it motivates me to look into Quran more.
Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. And this is something Quran talks about, muhkamat and mushahabat. Muhkamat is something which is fixed orders, do's and don'ts. And mutashabihat are the ones which are something, alluded to. Now, some of these mutashabihats are, being clarified in our life. But it's still, there are things which we are beyond our comprehension. Like Quran talks about seven tibaq, sabah tibaq, that seven manzil. And the only thing we can, and we are lost in this one tibaq, let alone know the other six tibaq. So these are something which are, but as time goes by, as human knowledge expands, and we know a little more, we understand a little more. But alhamdulillah, so far, everything, there is nothing in the Quran which has been nullified. In fact, one of the things, one French doctor accepted Islam because he read how the child grows in a human, raham, in belly. So this, those stages are, he blew his mind that 1400 years ago, how come, Rasulullah knew all these stages. So this is something, as our knowledge grows, our mutashabihat becomes more understandable. Anyone else, you want to say something? What we are talking about, let's see, maybe Masjid can address some of these things, that if there is a difficulty, level of difficulty if people are facing, then maybe we can have some special programs. I know that, it's important thing is that you all have to make an effort to read the Quran. It's not the Imam's job. It's not, nobody is going to be held responsible. It's you are responsible. So this is what I want to emphasize with this session, that you go out and say, you are responsible. You have to make that connection yourself. Now, I don't know how much time you spend or whatever, but if you, address those level of difficulties you are having, then maybe something can be done about them. Because knowing the problem is half the solution, Yeah.
Assalamualaikum.
Was.
So I have a comment first, and then I have I will share my portion that I always struggle. But first is a comment. It's really interesting that you brought up the point of relating computer, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may have, He has a mechanism. Because the way our good deeds are turned at night is reflecting, basically we are is a backup
Yeah.
that is going on. So you really brought up, and that really is so true, it's happening. But the portion that I always struggle is, of course, the day of judgment, and I think it's just that some of this stuff is not clear, or either just my understanding is that's one area that I want to understand. But one thing is, I guess, some says that Day of Judgment is a day of that, but then on the other hand, the Day of Judgment starts when we are in the grave, or as soon as we die. So that's one thing is, I guess, is my portion of, this is my perspective.
Well, just to let you know, there's a hadith from Rasulullah, and he says, when a person dies, that's the, that's his day, he's done. But the thing of it is that, if he has, this is what we have to analyze and evaluate our own actions, that if we have done something good, and the after effects, we may not see it. You put up a water pump somewhere, and people are feeding, and you may save some lives. So Allah is going to give you the credit for that good deed. But on the other hand, if you have done bad things, then those bad things will be accounted for. So this was my major difficulty myself, because I thought at one time I had difficulty saying that why there is a azab al-qabr. You go through, Allah is so powerful, He knows everything by the time you're dead, that He can say you go here to Jannah, you go here to hell. But there is something which is continuing. If you have good children, and their good deed, you brought them good, then there's a credit for you. So those are all things which are accountable. Okay. Anyone else? Go ahead, brother.
When I read the Quran, the concept that I don't sometimes I don't understand fully is the concept of the time. For example, the verb, how they are used. Sometimes Allah may be talking in present tense, and then give the result in past tense. Sometimes the concept of the time, sometimes the Quran, sometimes I don't fully understand. That's one of my problems.
So that's one of your difficulties, that you are when Allah talks about past tense and
No, sometimes Allah may be talking in the present tense, and then he gave already the result in the past tense. For example, there's one surah, one Allah is talking about the follower of Prophet Isa alayhi salam.
Mhm.
I don't remember the surah, but he said, they believed in Allah, that's why they were granted the Jannah. So Allah is talking in the present, but the result is already done in the past. Sometimes I have some type of verses that
this is the Arabic, I guess, language things, because sometimes I feel, and grammar experts say that although something is said about that Allah is saying in the past, but actually that also means future. Past and future is embedded together. See, like yaf'alu is he did it. But if it says fa'ala, then it could be past and future. So you have to be, identify those difficulties, but maybe talk it over, bring it to the imam or so. Important thing is that you remove that difficulty. Look at different tafsirs. There are so many things available on the YouTube and variety of books that you need to address that issue. Inshallah, someone would be able. But the important thing is that you recognize what is bothering you. There's a lot of things, I still have not clearly understanding myself. Like I said, this 7 Sabah Tabaq is one of the things which is difficult for me, because our human understanding is very limited. We don't. As a matter of fact, I pretty much avoid because I do not understand the day of Qiyamah myself. But whatever you understand, you try to improve your understanding, inshallah.
So let me try to add very briefly what you said.
Inshallah.
Besides the commentary, you have to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for him, is past, present, and future is all the same. It's all in present. So when he mentions something, it's all in present for him. For us, it's a past and future. So just to add that Islam.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Thank you very much for your efforts and really helping us to solidify our understanding of the deen. Just exactly what the brother mentioned, I have had an explanation before about time as well, that Allah is not bound by time, right? He already knows probably what has already happened
Right.
for him. And my struggle really is about qadar and also as free will. So the concept is I reflect on it, sometimes I'll get it, and sometimes it kind of falls in my mind. So that's my challenge.
Yeah, brother, you are not alone. There are a lot of people who have difficulties, particularly connecting qadr and dua. Say, if something is already, destined for me, then why should my dua is not going to affect. But, what I have read and understand that dua has a very specific, Allah knows the eventual result, but not necessarily. If I'm going through a difficulty and I make a dua and I say, my dua is useless, I'm wrong. My dua has value because Allah has all the power to change whatever I'm going to go through, So we have to have belief that our dua will be, mashallah, because He says, ask me and I'll answer it. Anyone else?
On that topic, actually, one of my Islamic teachers when I was very young helped me understand that concept, which I still struggle with. He explained to the class, he said, listen, I know who's going to get an A at the end of the class, who's going to get a B, who's going to get a C, right? Based on me interacting with you all from the beginning of the year until the end of the year, I have a good idea. I can probably predict within a very close percentage who is going to get an A, B, or C. If I wrote that down on a piece of paper and gave that to you and said, don't open it until the end of the year, and you opened it, and the result matches, are you going to think that I'm, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, lillahi mathal a'la, He created us.
Right.
He knows how we're going to, and where we're going to end up,
Exactly.
but we don't know.
Yeah.
Just like the student in the class, they have every opportunity to study and work hard and get an A, but ultimately, everybody has a certain capacity or certain limits, and just like, the teacher may be able to anticipate with a certain level of certainty, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the ultimate certainty because He created us. So that kind of helped me a little bit, especially as a youth, kind of understand the concept. And alhamdulillah, Muhammad joined us.
Mashallah, that's a good explanation, because ultimately He knows we are going through certain stages, and we just think that this is it, but that's not the ultimate. So Allah knows what the ultimate results are, and this is something which is welcome, brother Imam. Yeah.
I just wanted to comment. One of the things, Qadar, is one thing we always struggle. And when something bad happens, we always say, why me? And I'm guilty of that myself. But it is, again, is a test from Allah to see how we go through and how we pull ourselves out of this situation. So it is not just because it's that, it is a test. So that's why we need to be praying and be patient. And inshallah, everything is from Allah, and He will give us the best.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Do you have an English translation you recommend above others? Of the Quran, for those English speakers, do you have one translation you prefer over others? One that's a little less messy, like filled with sometimes too many parentheses,
Yeah.
which is someone's inflection, can become confusing too.
Yeah, my recommendation is, you have to, I guess, develop your own. Everyone has a different test and level of understanding, but this is sometimes such a problem, because you have a lot of these big Arabic names which people are totally unfamiliar with and cannot even pronounce them. So they pop up. Yeah, I mean there are something there, but again, you do the best you can. My suggestion is read different tafsirs, different, so that you get a flavor, because each one of, there's a saying there that Quran is such a vast ocean of knowledge, and each one of these people go through and pick up a pearl, pick up a nugget, and the other one goes in through and pick up another one and pick up another one, So this is something which, really, this is up to you. But my purpose of presenting this presentation, was actually just to motivate you to spend some time with the Quran. I don't know how much time you spend, but you are the one who is accountable. You are the one who needs to say, that, what is my connection to Allah? And this is the only way you can strengthen your connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, you spend 30 minutes or 45 minutes a day, but this is what is really needed to because we have a lot of other things in our life, but this is important that you need to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and see where, if you have problem, go seek help. There are people, Imam is there, ask questions. Unfortunately, you don't get all that information in the khutbahs on Fridays, but I think they need to educate people about the Quran, because this is the most precious thing in our life.
I would recommend Ibn Kathir. But again, read small, understand it, and maybe go start with a small surah. Because again, like you're building up yourself. But Imam, I think you may want to say something. What would you recommend?
I think, as Brother Saleem said, is people, they have a different test or different, but I think, I don't read English translation because Alhamdulillah, Allah blessed me to understand the Quran without reading any translation. But if you want to go know more information, yes, Ibn Kathir is good because I think it's 10 volumes.
Yeah.
So if you want to read, you will see a lot of comments. He, quote a hadith. Also, he wrote a hadith and then he explained. But I think if you just a beginner and you want to read the translation of the Quran, maybe clear Quran is good. And also, I find out another one is good is a translation from Oxford University. Oxford translation is good.
Yeah, Abdul Halim, yeah, Abdul Halim. There's one translation which is, but I don't think it has the Arabic script in it. But but you need to really also read. See, the thing of it is that Quran has two impacts, two effects. One is to your mind, and one is to your heart. So Arabic Quran affects your heart. Sometimes you don't even understand it, but it affects your heart. But the one who affects, but you have to have some balance between what affects your mind and heart, but you need to find that balance. That's the important thing.
I think for the question of which Quran translation is good, I think Imam and Brother Saleem was trying to say it's M.A.S. Abdul Halim. It's called the New Translation by M.A.S. Abdul Halim Quran. That's a very good one. It's all in English, but it's very simplistic to understand, and it's a contemporary English. Some of the Qurans are like either too parenthetical or they may be in Old English, right? Like British English. Or,
Yeah.
This one's very simple. Another one I think is a really good, but it's a very dense intellectual one, is Muhammad Asad. That one is really good. His commentary is excellent.
Yeah.
It's a nice combination of like really challenging your mind, and then also he explains in his commentary some really, really good stuff. He mastered Arabic, and he's a Jewish convert to Islam, so he comes with also a Western perspective as well. It's very contemporary, nice. Those two are nice ones.
Now, actually, Muhammad Asad's translation is, if you go to Islamic City, site, and you're looking at searching thing, all the translation is Muhammad Asad's translation in there.
And one more thing, I mentioned this in the tafsir today.
I mentioned in the tafsir today, if you really want to understand the Quran without even reading translation, you must put effort. You cannot just rely on translation if you want to understand the Quran. How? I'll tell you. You have your mother's tongue, each one of us. It could be Urdu, it could be English, it could be Amharic, any other language. Find out and scholar, an alim, somebody who really knows the deen, who explain the Quran in your mother's language, but make sure you finish the entire Quran every month in 3 years. Listen, don't look anything, just listen, finish, restart again. In 3 years, you will find yourself behind the Imam, listen in the recitation of the Tarawih prayer, and you will not miss anything. But that requires a lot of effort and time. Don't stop. You can listen when you are cooking, you can listen when you are cleaning, you can listen when you're driving on the road, you can listen. Alhamdulillah, now we have this technology, all the time you can listen. But make sure you do that 3 years, inshallah, and you will find out. You understand the whole Quran with no translation.
Brother, I'll die happy when I reach to that stage.
It's worth it.
Inshallah. Any other? Yeah. Go ahead.
One more is Yusuf Ali. You know Noble Quran?
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I had so much difficulty with it. I can.
The Quran by Abdul Ali, that's a really good one. There's one last question, actually, Brother Imam. It's a question maybe for you. A brother asked about, do you want to ask? Or you want me to ask? Okay. So basically, the brother here asked a question that he was reading the Quran about the story of Adam. And he could not find in there references to how the children, Habil and Habil, the killing that happened. Is that in the Quran?
The name, you're talking about the name?
No, the incident of the killing between Habil and Habil.
That's what it's about. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even say, وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ ابْنَيْ آدَمَ بِالْحَقِّ إِذْ قَرَّبَا قُرْبَانًا فَتُقُبِّلَ مِنْ أَحَدِهِمَا وَلَمْ يُتَقَبَّلْ مِنَ الْآخَرِ قَالَ لَأَقْتُلَنَّكَ.
His question, he said, doesn't say which brother killed who.
No, it says.
Okay, yeah. So then now he's asking the name.
No, can.
The Quran didn't mention the name, and it's not even necessary to mention the name. So, but what we know, one was in the wrong side and the other was on the right side. So Allah accepted the reality of the one who was the right side, and Allah did not accept the one who was the wrong side. And the reason that the Quran mentioned the names and the time also, Quran, you will never find time and names in the Quran except the messengers, a few individuals. The reason is because it's irrelevant. What irrelevant is the action.
Action. Actually, this is a very important point to understand the Quran, that if Allah does not choose to tell you something, for example, Surah Kahf, which we read on Jummah, every Jummah, that it does not tell us exactly how many people were there, and it's not important. It's what the story is important. So when Allah chooses, actually, Surah the Hazrat Musa venture, and with the Khidr alayhi salam, Allah does not tell us Khidr name him in the Surah Al-Kahf. Is mentioned it comes from Israeliyat. So, but we need to focus on what are the things which Allah is saying, not what He is not saying. He did not tell us what Yusuf alayhi salam's, that Wazir's wife was, so there are certain things which Allah did not tell us. So we need to focus on things which Allah is telling us. Any other items? I think we are getting to 120.
One more question and then we'll wrap up.
Right.
So another question I was just going to add to the translations. I personally have to read, which is the female Quran by Awala Maududi.
Maududi. By the way, he's the major source in my you know, I said it earlier that if the book primer, if you are interested, you know, write down on a piece of paper your name and email address, and I'll make it available to you. So inshallah, Jazakallah for attending it.
Jazakumullah khair, wa barakallahu feekum. Thank you all for coming today for a wonderful presentation by Brother Saleem. May Allah make us from those who understand the Quran. Next week, inshallah, which will be, what's next week? Oh, next week there will be no CES because we'll be on Thanksgiving break. And then inshallah we'll be back on December 8th. I haven't announced it yet, but it's going to be a very, very special presentation on the 8th. Please be sure to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, Muslim, non-Muslim. It's going to be a very, very interesting presentation. So I'll look out for the advertisement in the next couple of days. Jazakumullah khair, wa barakallahu feekum, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Nice job, Jaja.
Mm.
Good. Well done.
Thank you.
Sorry, Uncle, I gotta get this from you. Thank you.